welcome to the 18th episode of the Aloysius the Bear podcast.
I beg your pardon. I think you'll find it's the Sockmatician podcast.
I thought we were supposed to be co-hosts today.
Well, you may be my co-host for today, but, it's kind of a co-presenting job. You can't take over. It's not that simple. I'm sorry about that. How odd. Welcome back. This is the Sockmatician podcast, and my name is Nathan Taylor, also known as Sockmatician on Ravelry, Twitter, Instagram, and here on YouTube. And I cannot tell you what a great delight it is for me to be back podcasting again. It's been way too long. Most of you who are returning viewers will understand exactly why. I've been incredibly busy over this last year in a project called Beyond the Fence, which is the show that my husband and I have written with the aid of some computational creativity experts, and the show has just recently finished and happened. I'll talk more about that later, but it's meant that I haven't had any chance to do any of my normal podcasting schedule. So this is actually my first podcast of the year, even though it's the 10th of March. And I feel really bad about that, except life gets in the way, and this is something I do for fun. And I know that everybody who has been watching this podcast fully understands that some things are all-consuming. I genuinely haven't had the headspace, let alone the time, to do anything about podcasting for you all, but I'm back. I do plan on getting back to my usual schedule of about once every 2 weeks. I have a lot more time on my hands now, and I've really missed you. I've really missed sitting down for a little while every now and then and just having a little good old chat. Knitter to knitter, boy knitter to girl knitter, boy knitter to boy knitter, just knitter to knitter, and having a really lovely fun time. I've missed the engagement most of all. I've missed being able to interact with people and engage with them on the various platforms that we are all part of. As you know, that's one of the reasons I wanted to get involved with this podcast in the first place, was to be able to reach out and have some kind of contact with people I wouldn't otherwise get to know. I think the knitting community is such a vibrant and helpful resource for everybody, but it's also full of nice people, and it's really nice to know that there are people out there. Yes, I can go to my knitting circles. I'm pointing out the pub because the pub's in that direction. On a Tuesday night, and I can meet some local knitters. But through this podcast, I've had a chance to meet knitters in America, in Australia, New Zealand, in Taiwan, and all sorts of exotic places like that. And that makes me very happy. So how have you been? You know a little bit about how I've been. There is so much to tell you. First of all, I should possibly explain who this little chap is here. This is Aloysius, as he mentioned. And Aloysius, you may recognise a few little characteristics of the type of bear that Aloysius is. Well, he's a bakery bear. So bakery bears obviously are Dan and Kay Jones, who run the fabulous Bakery Bears podcast, which I know most of you already watch. If you don't, you should check them out, the Bakery Bears. Kay, who is the designer behind the duo, she designed, this is Mr. Bakery Bear, and there's also a Mrs. Bakery Bear pattern as well. And they're really gorgeous. Now there's a reason why I've knitted Mr. Bakery Bear here, Aloysius. I'm not really one for stuffies. I'm not a toy maker. In fact, this is the first time I've ever done anything like this, apart from those of you who remember my very first knitting project ever, which was my dark green pink panther. I've just remembered. I perhaps should have brought him down to share the screen with Aloysius here. I haven't done that, but he's had his screen time already. I'm sure he won't mind. So last year, Dan challenged me to a round of Knit or Forfeit, which is the quiz show that they host on their podcast. I was only too delighted to get involved. I said, yes, of course. Now, we had forfeits for each other. Now, Dan's original forfeit for me was, if I lost, I was going to have to knit the type of hat that he hates, a slouchy hat, out of the most revolting yarn he could find, with a big old bobble, and I was going to have to take photographs of myself wearing it in public. And I said to Dan, if he lost, I challenged him to learn double knitting. Actually, I gave him a choice of 2 different challenges. The first one was to knit with some bobbly, weird yarn that my aunt had given to me, and I haven't managed to find a use for it. I may do, because Dan has decided that's not going to be the challenge that he wanted to accept, but he did like the sound of learning double knitting, so that's coming up in both of our futures very soon. I'm going to be teaching Dan, and I think he's going to be brilliant. I think he's a bit nervous about it, and Dan, if you're watching, you have no reason to be, because after all, it is only one stitch at a time, as all of our fellow OSATers will remember. That is my mantra for life and knitting. So Dan gave me the challenge, or the choice of the challenge. I could either accept the nasty yarn hat, or I could do a kind of deal or no deal thing, and without knowing what was in the box, I could open box 25 and see what the other challenge was, knowing that I couldn't then go back. I was like, I'm gung-ho, I'm game for this, and I decided to open the box. Now the challenge there was to knit a bakery bear, and to have said bakery bear co-host next episode of my podcast. So here we are, co-hosting together. Now I wanted to combine both aspects of that, and Dan sent me the yarn that he wanted me to knit this hat out of. And it's the yarn that that Aloysius is wearing for his jumper. The jumper is part of the pattern. If you've not knit a bakery bear before, the pattern is brilliantly put together. Kay's done a great job with lots of photo tutorials of all the tricky bits, not tricky bits, but bits that are harder to describe in text. Everything is there for you, and it's fantastic. And the jumper comes as part of it. It's got this lovely sort of antler cable design on the front. It's knitted flat. It knits up very, very quickly in DK weight. And Aloysius himself is knitted out of worsted or Aran weight. And I've gone for the West Yorkshire Spinners. I've got it here actually. The West Yorkshire Spinners. What have we got here? It's 100% blue-faced Leicester yarn, Aran thickness, 100 grams is 166 meters, and this is their owl print, and the label looks like this. It's really nice to knit with, and on the in the cake, it's all sort of this kind of speckly. This is what I had left out of 100 grams, so it's quite generous, and you don't need a great deal for a bakery bear. And it just, I didn't expect that it would knit up in stripes. And brilliantly, and by pure coincidence, he's got this wonderful little Hong Kong Phooey mask on his face, right where his eyes need to be. So that is just fantastic. Now, the lovely Kay, hello Kay, when she sent the pattern to me in order to complete my challenge, she also sent the yarn. This is the yarn that Dan wanted me to make the hat out of, and I decided I would use it. It's such a brilliant colour. I don't know why Dan thinks it's hideous. I actually really like it. It's like £2 a ball, 100% acrylic. It's kind of squeaky. It's kind of it doesn't give very much, but it feels soft enough. You know, it's the kind of stuff you'd make a baby hat out of or a baby blanket with, and not have any problems at all. I don't knit with acrylic, and that's not because of a yarn snobbery. Well, maybe it is actually. I mean, it feels alright. You know, it wasn't too bad. I didn't mind it, but I do love the way Aloysius's tummy stripes. It goes between the sort of speckles and then a dark, and more speckles and then a light, and then speckles then a grey, and sort of keeps repeating that pattern all the way through. And I love the fact that I deliberately made him as mismatched as possible, but I did want the inner ears to look darker, so I used the same colour as his. I basically pilfered my way through the skein, trying to find the bits of colour that I wanted for certain bits, although I made sure that I deliberately didn't match up, so his hands don't match and his feet don't match, and that was very deliberate. I had so much fun making him. He knitted up in the bear himself, which was 2 evenings' work, a couple of hours on the jumper, and then he does come with part of the pattern does come with some shorts as well. But I made him a rather pudgy little bear. So I didn't make the shorts. So I wasn't sure that the waistband would go around his waist. So I decided to leave. I didn't want to cover up too much of his body because I really like the way that this yarn knits up. I think the striping pattern is absolutely lovely, and I didn't want to cover that. So I thought, well, rather than let him get cold, I'll knit him a scarf. And I thought, well, a scarf needs to be only something very, very simple, but it needs to be something that's not going to curl. So a stocking stitch wasn't going to work. And I didn't want to do just garter stitch. So actually what I've done, I'll come a little closer so you can see. I've knitted him a linen stitch scarf. Is that going to focus properly? It's going to try. A linen stitch scarf, and I actually knitted it lengthways, so I cast on I think about 120 stitches and only knitted about 20 rows. So the beauty of linen stitch is it lies completely flat. It's very, very smooth flat fabric, and the way the colours from the variegation in this, which is an old offcut of a Vollmeiser skein that I knitted something for my mum with, the way the colours play with each other, you get this wonderful sort of woven texture, and on the back it looks a little bit like a moss stitch, and it sits brilliantly flat. So if you have any teddy bears and you'd like to make them a scarf, I can heartily recommend linen stitch. I nearly cast on 20 stitches and did that, but then I thought, you know what, I'm going to be turning this work hundreds of times, and thankfully before I even started it dawned on me that if I just knit it the other way then I'll only have to turn about 20 times. So that's why it's a lengthways knitted linen stitch scarf, and Aloysius, it seems, really likes it. I don't normally plough in on the knitted content of this podcast, so normally I talk about what I've been doing beyond the fence. For those of you who may not know already, Ben and I for the last year have been at the centre of a documentary for Sky Arts to see if humans and computers can collaborate to write a hit musical. And we've been dealing with, I won't go into too much detail, we've been dealing with computer experts in the field of computational creativity from universities all over Europe. And these are the top specialists in their field who are all dealing with various aspects of can computers be creative. And sometimes that's to do with inspiring ideas in the human brain, sometimes that's to do with coming up with narrative, plot, music generation and lyric generation tools as well. None of these have ever turned their attention towards musical theatre, and until now for this experiment. So Ben and I have been working with all these different scientists and all these different computers to bring a show to life, which has had a large part of its content and its premise and its ideas behind it coming from the computers themselves. And it's, the documentary is called Computer Says Show. It's a terrible pun. That aired on Sky Arts 2 weeks ago and 1 week ago, the two 1-hour episodes. And the joy of it as well is that when the show was up and running in a West End theatre, it was terribly exciting, the cameras came in and they filmed an entire performance of the show, which was broadcast in its entirety. So I actually haven't seen that yet. Can you believe it? I've seen the documentary episodes. We managed to get a sneak peek of that before they went to air. But the broadcast of the actual performance we haven't seen, because it went out at the time when the show was running and Ben and I were watching it live in the theatre, and also we don't have Sky, so I couldn't have watched it even if I was sitting at home. So we haven't seen that yet, and I think it's going to be quite fun to have a little break for a couple of weeks, and then we can return and watch it with fresh eyes. Without doubt, it was the most difficult experience of my life, the most stressful for lots and lots of different reasons, which I don't want to go into here, but culminating in one of the most amazing things in the world, which is a West End show with our names on it. I mean, really quite extraordinary. And so Ben and I were pulling together all sorts of different strands and doing a lot of the writing ourselves, as well as using the content that came from the computers. The computer systems at the moment are still in their infancy. They're not quite up to the task of writing a hit show. So we had to, we used the computer systems as far as we possibly could while they were still useful. And then when we felt that they were lacking in any way, that's when we stepped in and tidied things up. But we've had to create all sorts of documents about exactly what notes from this song came from me, what notes came from the computer, what notes came from Ben, how we changed things, whether we changed chords underneath, whether we used things in their entirety, where this content came from. It's been absolutely insane. And putting on a show, particularly a West End show of a large scale, is incredibly stressful and difficult at the best of times, and we had all of those stresses and pressures, as well as the deadline was madness. From the time we started writing, we had 4.5 months before the show went into rehearsal. Most shows take several years to write. All of that, absolutely bonkers. Now, I'm going to sort of bring this back to knitting as soon as I can. One of the joys of this podcast is, as I say, it brings me into contact with people I wouldn't necessarily get to meet. And actually, do you know what? Before I tell the story, I need to tell you a little bit more about the show. So if you haven't seen the little episodes of my Not a Podcast that I was doing since the last episode of this full podcast, you might not know that the show, called Beyond the Fence, is the story of, it's a story set at Greenham Common. Greenham Common was an RAF base in Berkshire, just outside London. In the 1980s became the home of American cruise missiles as part of the Cold War conflict between the US and Russia, and Britain was seen as a useful stop point so that American missiles could be stored here, and then they could easily attack Russia should the need arise. Thankfully that never happened, but the missiles did come here. About 136, I think, nuclear missiles were stored on British soil at 2 locations. 96 of them were at Greenham Common. Now this caused an uproar, and there were peace camps that grew up around the perimeter fence at Greenham Common, which were initially men and women, but later became women only. And it's one of the most significant protest stories of UK history, and it changed the face of protest. They were all dealing with non-violent protest. It changed the face of feminism. It was a non-hierarchical, non-patriarchal society that women could live in sort of communal harmony with each other while fighting the cause, which was, of course, nuclear disarmament. So that's where our story was set, and our story was also, the human element of our story was the story of Mary and her daughter George, who were fictitious characters, but based on people who could have been at Greenham Common in the 1980s. George is her daughter, who's 12 at the time the story takes place, and who can't speak. She's suffered trauma in her life and has shut down and has complete non-verbal communication. And it's through an unlikely friendship with a US serviceman, George and she spark up this friendship, which allows her mother to perhaps see him, the captain, as something more than just the enemy. And without giving too much away, there's a beautiful resolution, and the two of them do fall in love, and the three of them become a very tight-knit, loving family. So there's quite a lot to get into 2 hours of storytelling with lots of songs and lots of... We had a brilliant cast of 13 people. We had 2 little girls playing George on alternate nights, Holly and Zaya, who were both fantastic. And there we were, set in Greenham Common. Now, through the beauty of this podcast, as I've said, and interrupted myself just now, we get a chance to meet people that I wouldn't normally get a chance to meet. And one of the people I've had quite a lot of dealings with on the Ravelry group is Leslie Swanell from Cornwall, who is Porthia, Porthia. I do that all the time. I spell it, I know, it's right here. I know it's there. It's not there while I'm saying it, that's the point. So Porthia, Leslie, had contacted me when I was talking about Greenham Common story. She was saying that she knew someone, her husband is good friends with the father of a baby who was born at Greenham Common, and that her son and this child were good friends growing up. I was like, this is amazing, because Ben and I did so much research into the Greenham story that we knew that there was a baby who was born at Greenham Common, interestingly to 2 mums. So the story of the baby's biological father is sort of lost to history, as far as I was aware, and that this baby was called J-A-Y. And I said to Leslie, you don't by any chance mean Jay, do you, baby Jay? And she went, yes, Jay. It's like, oh, this is extraordinary. So I asked her to pass on my details to him, because I thought the production company who were making the documentary would love to interview him. He hasn't got in touch, and that's absolutely fine. We completely accept his right to privacy. Of course, it was a story that happened while he was a tiny, tiny baby, so it's not something that he would have any memories of, and it may be something that he's wanted to move on from, and that's absolutely fine. However, having that link, Ben and I had photographs of this child on our wall. There's quite a lot of stuff out there online. It's not a crazy stalky thing, but we had lots of mood boards and things to sort of help us be inspired by the story all the way through the writing process. And there was a photograph of Jay that was on the wall right by where we were bringing this story to life, because the story, our story, was about a child, and that he was a child who was at Greenham. The links were really, really close. Cut to the opening night of the first preview of the show. Ben and I really, really stressed, everything really completely crazy, and also like twitching going on. And a letter had arrived at the theatre addressed to me and to Ben, and it was from Leslie with one of the most special gifts I could possibly have had. I haven't got the card here, but I can remember what she said. It's a piece of knitting, which I'll show you in a second. It's a piece of knitting which is double knitting, which of course is very dear to my heart. And she said she was going through some old bits and pieces and came across the chart for a stranded jumper that she made for Jay when he was a child. And this is the design. The world and the dove of peace. Double knitted, which, as she says, through the wonders of double knitting, the white dove of peace on the reverse becomes the bluebird of happiness, which is what she wished for us and the cast and for the production. I mean, I all but dissolved in tears when I read this and when I saw it. Not only is it such a beautiful, thoughtful and wonderful gift, thank you Leslie, thank you so much, but the links between this was something that she had knitted for Jay as a child, and Jay was one of the main inspirations for our story. Genuinely, words fail me. I've already contacted Leslie, so she knows how grateful I am. But this is incredibly special, and I will treasure it forever. Thank you. One of the things that was fun about putting together our show was that we got a chance to give first night gifts to the cast and to the company, and Ben and I decided a couple of months ago what we wanted to do. I'm a massive old show queen. I love musical theatre. It's always been such a massive part of my life, which is why I went into the business in the first place. And as a kid, I used to go to London and I'd watch the shows, and I'd always buy a theatre mug. The mugs that have the logo and, you know, all in the colours of the show. And I really, really used to treasure my mugs. I think I've still got a big box full of them up in the loft somewhere. And I knew that the most thrilling thing for me, even though it wasn't going to be on sale, would be to have mugs made with the logo of the show on them, because that was very, very special. So that would be a personal thing for me. Now, the logo of the show kind of looks like this. Is the show's programme. You can see beyond the fence there, we've got a little girl and a soldier and her mother. And interestingly, if you look through this programme, it's a very standard theatre programme with production shots and biogs, until you get to the middle where, as you'd imagine, it's got a cast list and song list and everything. But then after that, everything's upside down. Why would that be, one asks oneself? Well, if you take the programme, it's a nice idea actually, and if you turn it that way up, you've then got the programme for Computer Says Show, which is basically the history of the documentary and the science and the process behind all of the stuff that went into it. There's me and Ben at one of the early stages of the process. Here we are in Madrid, meeting one of the scientists who gave us help with all the narrative processes. There's information about how we found all the lyrics. There's Ben with Nick Collins, this is Nick, this is Ben, who did the system that generated quite a lot of the material that we used in the show. And then there's a whole sort of essay on stuff written by me about the process. It's all about me, it's very exciting. But basically I'm showing you that because that's the logo. So then we contact this company who make commemorative mugs and commercial mugs and stuff. Ta-da! Look at that! I'm so excited. I was so excited. On the front and the back we've got Beyond the Fence. Now the Beyond the Fence colours are black and orange. It's usually black on an orange background, but they didn't do orange mugs, so I put orange ink on a black mug. And we've also, just inside the rim, we've put a nice special message for the cast. It says, "No more looking at yesterday," and then the dates of the show. The finale song is called At Our Feet, and the chorus is, "No more looking at yesterday, now there's only tomorrow. We rise knowing our future lies at our feet." And I think that's a really, really positive message, and so we wanted to commemorate that in our mugs as well. We gave them to the cast and they were absolutely delighted. We gave them to the crew with, "Oh, thank you very much, a mug," but the cast was like, "Oh, show mug, how exciting." Now there's a lot of stuff. That's plenty about the show. Honestly, I could honestly talk about it for weeks. We did several Q&As and things like that after the show, and after the first two, the people putting everything together soon learned that they should probably only have me or Ben, not both of us together on the Q&A panel, because if it was both of us together, no one else would get a word in edgeways. We've been living with this stuff for the last year, and so if someone says, "So tell us how it was done," it all comes splurging out, and I can probably talk about this process without pausing for breath for several hours. I'm not going to do that now, don't worry. So, other things, right, the show finished on Saturday and it was really, really emotional. Ben and I watched every single performance. There were 15 in total because we had guests in at every show and we wanted to share it with them. And also, I thought, well, is this a bit sad, me going every night? No. How often am I going to get a West End show that I co-wrote running in London? I didn't want to miss a single second. I wanted to drink it all in. So we did. And the final night, as the cast were singing At Our Feet, the finale song, Ben and I both got very emotional. I got very teary, and it was partly because it was the last time we were going to get a chance to see it, but partly because it really was the sort of the full stop after a very, very difficult process. And Ben and I have set ourselves nearly mad doing this. It's been definitely the hardest thing we've ever done. Certainly one of the most rewarding ultimately, but tough, really, really tough. So it was good to put it to bed in that way. And then on Monday I needed to go to a funeral. My best friend, who was my best man in my wedding, my dear old school friend Philip, his father sadly passed away a couple of weeks ago. So it was the funeral for that. So that was never going to be fun. But obviously we were going to go. So Ben and I got in the car and drove up to Oxfordshire, where we used to live as kids, where Philip's mum still lives. And on our way there, we got involved in a bit of a car accident. An articulated lorry just shoved its way into the back of my car while we were coming off the motorway, just slammed into the back of us. And just before we were due to arrive at the funeral, so we were a little bit late for the funeral. So the last couple of days has all been about dealing with the admin that has sprung up. Neither one of us injured. I keep forgetting to tell people that genuinely not an injury at all. Thankfully, the difference in speed between what we were doing and what the lorry was doing as it approached us was not that great. So although there's quite a lot of damage to the back of the car, it's still dry, as we were still able to get there. We arrived halfway through the funeral service, so we didn't miss it all, and then we were there for the rest of it. We were able to drive home again, so all is fine. It does mean that we've now just got the hassle of dealing with insurance and repairs and not having the car, and I genuinely felt that at the end of the show, a year of stress could be like sort of shoved behind us and we could just get back to a really carefree, nice life. And then of course there's a funeral, and then, which I don't begrudge of course, but it's still not pleasant. And then there's the accident, which I do begrudge, and then straight back into work. I ain't complaining. My life is interesting. And, old proverbs and stuff like that. May you live in interesting times. I'd hate to live in dull times. So, I ain't complaining about that. But, I did want a couple of days break. That kind of brings us up to date. There's so much more I could say. I really would love to carry on and do loads more things, but I'm not going to. There's some knitting admin which is outstanding, which I want to administrate now. And one of those is, hundreds of years ago, people will remember that I was hosting a Christmas Sockmatician knit-along to try and get people sort of knitting all my patterns, which is of course my own form of self-promotion, and I don't mind admitting it, but also just to get people in my group become more community minded. They're lovely people, all of you in my group. I adore you all, but what I had noticed was that there was very much a sense that it was interaction in two directions, between me and you and you and me, and not necessarily between you and you. Now, some lovely people in the group, and in order to try and get people interacting with each other, not just through me, I wanted to do this knit along to try and encourage people to chat together. And I said that there would be prizes, and there are going to be prizes, and I actually haven't got them all here, so I'm not going to do anything about that now. I've got some of them here, and I can talk about the others as we go along and share them at a later stage. Now, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to look at the finished objects thread for my... I genuinely haven't done this in advance, and I'm going to show you on here. This is... it's hard to see, isn't it, because it's a bright screen. This is my Ravelry page. I'm only looking at my forum group there, rather than looking at the actual threads, because I'm going to choose, by choosing a number at random, see. I'm going to first of all see how many. I can't multitask. I thought I could do this and chat. Blah blah blah. No. So I found my Christmas knit along thread. Now I want the finished objects. I can't even find it. Christmas knit along. There we go. CCAL FO thread. That's what it's called. There are 14 finished objects. Now that may not seem like a huge amount. It's not the most vibrant of knit-alongs I've ever known, and I think there may be more than that, but I'm just going to go from that. So I'm going to pick a number between 1 and 14, and I'm going to say 14. I haven't looked. I don't know who number 14 is. Now number 14, you are my first winner. 14, let's remember that. First of all, I better go into the prizes, because 14, you've won. So one of the prizes is going to be a mystery skein of yarn from my stash. I'm going to send that out, and that is not the prize that number 14 has won. I have two other prizes, which are patterns of mine, which I'm going to donate to two other winners, and that will be of their choosing, so they can choose any pattern that's in my Ravelry store, and I'm going to do that. But I want to get on to the star prize, which is what number 14... I've done all this backwards, I haven't planned this very well. However, you don't know who you are yet unless you're already Googling yourself. A while back, when I first started talking about this knit along, I got contacted by the very lovely Leanne from New Zealand, who is Kilts and Quilts on Ravelry, and she said that she would love to donate. She makes kilts. She makes kilts, brilliant, but she also makes project bags, and she wanted to donate a project bag as a prize. And she's amazing. She's genuinely amazing. Her seamstress work is just glorious, and she's very kind. Because I said, well, listen, don't send it to me, because then you're having to pay for postage, and it may be that whoever wins it is in New Zealand anyway, and it would just be going straight back to them, and that seems silly. So I said, did she want to hang on to it, and then she can post it to wherever, because if she's going to be posting it somewhere, she might as well just post once rather than it batting about the world. But then she very kindly said, well, I'd like to send you a small version of the bag as well, which is brilliantly kind, and it arrived and is gorgeous. I have it here. It's her own little design, and it's just lovely. This is the bag here. Very much suitable for stuff for the boys, very much indeed. It's got her little label on it, so she obviously works under the name of Stitch Union, which you can see on there is www.stitchunion.etsy.com, stitchunion.etsy.com, and it's gorgeous. This material has got, it's all about music. which is very, very sweet. Everything on it says about music. It's scale, musical staff, treble, clef, augmentation, dots, a sequence of rising. So all of the stuff that's on it, and in large letters, you might just be able to say there, the words music. Really, really nice. And then on the inside, because I am who I am, it's all fabulously coloured Union Jacks. I adore it. I really, really do love it. Now, it's an unusual little design. It's got a wrist strap, which I love. I really love a bag with a wrist strap because I do quite a lot of knitting out and about, so it's great to be able to knit from the bag and not have to worry about the bag falling off my lap or anything like that. But the way it's closed, it's got these 3 little D rings here, 1, 2 and 3. So if it's not closed, then it kind of sits very, very nicely. It's a round bottomed bag. It sits very nicely like that. But if you want to close it shut, then you thread the hand strap through, I'm doing this badly, through the 1, 2 and then 3 at the front. And what that does is it gives you this beautiful little duffel bag, closed duffel bag effect, where everything sits very, very nicely together. And if I do it properly rather than badly, then you can see that's how it closes at the top. It's really, really lovely. And it's perfect for a pair of socks or anything like that. This is not the prize. This is mine, and I'm keeping it. I have the prize. Actually, I'm going to have to find another one here. Rahab or Reed. I have a photograph of the prize, which I should have pre-planned. So I'm now going to try and find it here. Messages. One that Leanne sent to me. She sent me a photograph of it. Oh my goodness, it is fabulous. Let me try and search messages. Quilts. Now, quilts. This is dull for you, isn't it? Here we are. I found it. No, that's not the one with the photograph in it, but this one I think is. Yeah. Okay, so this is what Leanne says. So she's been making some tartan bags, and her business is called Kilted, and she can be contacted at Custom Kilts, that's custom with a K, customkilts@gmail.com, and I'm very, very happy to send people her way. So if you are looking for a custom made Scottish kilt, and why wouldn't you, because her work is so amazing, then go to customkilts@gmail.com, and you can also find her on Facebook, which is leanne.kilt.d. So she's taken some photographs of the project bag, and it's just amazing. I absolutely love this gender neutral, here it is, superheroes bag in the same design as the one I've just shown you. But look at that, all Batman stuff. How brilliant is that? I utterly love it. And inside, the material is all sort of like handwriting. It's really gorgeous. I have a feeling, I might be wrong, I think this one is a little bit larger than the one I've just shown. It might be the same size. But anyway, whoever the lucky recipient is of number 14, you're going to love it. So I'm now going to check to unveil the lucky winner. So, number 14 of the Sockmatician Christmas Knit Along Finished Object Thread, post 14, scrolling down, is Skippy! Hurrah! Well done! Well done, and Skippy is Sharon from, oh God, I've forgotten where you are, Sharon. I think you're in America, aren't you? You're there. You're in California. Yes, you're right. Now, Sharon is one of the only people I know exactly who Sharon is. She's making my 42nd in Lexington shawl, which is the shawl that was published in Vogue Knitting. I don't know how she's getting on. I haven't checked in for a little while, but as far as I know, she's the only person in the world who's making it. If you're making it as well, please let me know, because I think a lot of people are intimidated by it, it's really not that difficult. Genuinely, it's not. Just need to keep your eye on the prize. So Sharon has finished a Snakes and Ladders cowl, which is a Mobius cowl that I did with some reversible cables in it. And she's done it, this is the cotton one, it's her second one actually, and it looks like that. Look at that. She's done a great job. It's a really unusual colour. I really like the look of that. So congratulations, Sharon. That's this, well, not this one, but the one that looks a bit like that but made of superheroes is going to be winging its way to you. So I'll need you to PM me with your address if you don't mind, and I will get that to you as soon as I possibly can. So then I need 3 more numbers to choose, and I'm going to have number 3, number 7, and number 11. Why not? 3, 7, 11. Let's make them some prime numbers. So if I scroll to number 3, so number 3 is going to be the recipient of the mystery skein of yarn from my stash. Number 3. Oh, I'm number 1. Number 2. Number 3 is Artist Maybe. Artist Maybe on Ravelry. I'm just having to look to see what your actual name is. Mary from British Columbia in Canada. Congratulations, Mary. Number 3, you have been making the Remember cowl, and you've done it in a gorgeous variegated purple rather than a black background with the red there. So that's really, really lovely example of the work. Congratulations to you. And so you're going to be getting the mystery skein of yarn. Again, please send me your details. And I said number 5 and number 7, didn't I? Number 5 is this 5? Ah, marvellous! The wonderful Ferran Moreno from Spain has made some gilt socks, and there he is modelling them very, very nicely. So Ferran, you've got quite a lot of my patterns already. Let me know if there's another one you want, and it's yours. And number 7 is Creative Mama RC, those are the letters RC, who is Renee also from California. And you have made a Wuppertal hat in this fabulous sort of stone colour. I really, really like that colour, it's great. It's kind of tweedy as well, really, really nice. So congratulations to you, a pattern of your choice will also be on its way to you. So there we are. It's months late. It seems so stupid to be talking about a Christmas knit along when it's March. But this is genuinely the first time I've done it, and that was live, and I hadn't planned any of that. So Sharon, Mary, Ferran, and I'm so rubbish. I've got all the details. I know who you are. Give me all your details, and I will send those things out to you. What am I like? Honestly, my head is all over the place. I was supposed to go into work yesterday and I forgot. I got a phone call about midday. I was supposed to be there about 10 in the morning saying, is everything okay? You all right? I was like, oh my God, I'll be there as soon as I can. My head's... I haven't quite got over this last year. It's been really stressful. Anyway, let's plough on with some knitting stuff. I don't want this to be the longest podcast in the world. I could go on chatting about nonsense for ages, but let's talk about some stash enhancements. There's been a bit actually, and there's probably a little bit more than I've got down here to show you because I just can't remember what you've seen and what you haven't. But clearly, one of the things you know about already is this. This is the acrylic yarn that is showing up quite true to colour. This is the acrylic yarn that Dan picked out for me and that Kay sent over with the pattern for the bakery bears. I'm going to show you that there's a whip attached to the other end of this. I am making something and I'm going to show it to you in a sec. With that, Kay sent me this wonderful rescue pack. She sent me some little safety eyes for the bear, but I forgot that I'd probably need to put those on before I sewed the head to the body and before I stuffed it. So he was eyeless for a little while. So what I've actually done is I embroidered his eyes on. And I think it gives him a nice smiley expression, which is kind of fun. Kay gives you brilliant instructions of how to create the nose and the mouth there that you can see, but I improvised the eyes with the same yarn, just some Malabrigo sock in black, I think. And I think that gives them a really nice expression. So thank you, Kay, for the eyes, but I didn't use them by accident rather than by judgment. But with my little rescue pack, which had the yarn in it, and it had the eyes, and it had the pattern, I'm the lucky recipient of a little Bakery Bears Notions bag. Now, many of you will know that when Kay puts her project bags and Notions bags on Etsy, they disappear in seconds. Well, I've got a special little pouch which is just for me, and it's gorgeous. Here it is. Look at this. You get a little set of DPNs in there, or just sort of general notions and things, and it's sort of all padded, and it must be some kind of interfacing in there. Look, there are the safety eyes, which I hadn't used. And inside it's got this lovely polka dot material, and the outside is very thoughtfully musical scores because of my musical background and the fact that I was writing a musical when all this happened. And I've also got the Etsy symbol on the little tag that says Bakery Bears Cottage on the edge, which is just lovely, and a nice little pull on the zip. It's really gorgeous, it's really sturdy and very, very well put together. Two amazing bits of soistry. That's a word I just made up in my head, and you can have it. You are welcome. Soistry. These two are both gorgeous, really, really nicely done. I would be so awful with a shopping trolley. I would be really awful trying to make bags with a shopping trolley. I suspect Leanne and Kay would be just as awful trying to make bags with a shopping trolley. I meant a sewing machine, quite obviously. I would be dreadful, and I have no idea how you manage to do things like this edge stitching there and get straight lines that are so gorgeous when you can't even see the hem on the inside. I don't know how you do it. It's a mad kind of sorcery. I'm just very glad you do. Kay, this is lovely. I haven't moved into it yet, but I thank you for it from the heart of my bottom, and I'm going to find some very nice things to keep in it. It might not even be knitting related. I might just keep stuff in there. Thank you for that. What else have I got? Now, I don't think I showed these to you last time, but I bought them on Christmas Eve, so I might have done. I'm now thinking I did. If you have, just look away. I was in a hobbycraft on Christmas Eve when I was visiting my family, and we found this really, really fabulous rainbow coloured. It's Regia, it's 4-ply, it's going to be bulletproof, Armageddon-proof sock yarn. What's it? It's dimensionally stable. It says on the label, the durability of Regia is 4-fold. It's dimensionally stable, it's hard wearing, it's machine washable with no felting, and it's dryer proof. Wow, with a 10-year Regia guarantee. Do you know what? I should knit with this stuff all the time. I've got so many pairs of socks which I've knitted with Malabrigo sock, and they pill and wear through in seconds. And I'm just really coming around to the fact that there's a reason why sock yarn exists. It may not be the most luxurious, it may not smell at all sheepy, it may not be the nicest to work with, it might, it's going to last. And actually that's what you want from a pair of socks, isn't it? So 5-6 years into my knitting career, and I'm suddenly thinking, maybe some people know better than I do. Wow. So that's that. What else have I got? Oh yes, the other day I was in Loop in London, and I was buying I was buying a gift for a friend of mine, and I wanted to get over, I think the gift was like £37, and I wanted to get over, or like £46, something like that. Well, anyway, I wanted to round it up to a certain number so I could get another stamp on my loyalty card. And so I looked around and I thought, you know what? I quite like the Crazy Zalba Ball colours. So we looked in their basket of Crazy Zalba Ball, and I came up with this. I really like it. It'll be a pair of socks, I have no doubt. It'll probably just be a pair of vanilla socks. I am at the moment trying to perfect my pattern, my recipe really, for toe-up socks, because I know exactly what I'm doing with cuff down, but I've never really done many pairs of toe-up. But I really like this. It's reds, it's oranges, it's beige, it's dark grey, it's pale grey, it's brown. It's really lovely. So it's Crazy Zauberball, made in Germany by Schuppel. And I don't know if it's got a colourway name on it. I do like this. Strichen kann süchtig machen. Knitting can be addictive. You are right. And no, colour 2092. No. So, but there we go. That's what it looks like, and it was just an impulse buy, just literally to make up some pennies. But I'm really looking forward to the socks that will come out of that. I like it. I can't remember what the content of Zauberball is. It's 75% virgin wool and 25% nylon. So that's all right, isn't it? And it's superwash. So yeah, it's going to be hopefully as bulletproof as this. Very nice indeed. What else? Oh, now I did treat myself. I went to Loop a couple of weeks ago, and I've got an idea brewing for a pattern which I've been working on in my head and partly on my computer for a couple of years. It's a massive chart. It's for double knitted scarf. I don't want to go into too much detail about it now because I want to get it sort of underway before I start unveiling it. But I know it's going to be in lace weight yarn. And I bought some lace weight yarn, and now this is nothing against the yarn. The yarn is absolutely gorgeous. I'm thinking I made the wrong choice. I need something with high contrast between the two colours, and I've chosen two colours which felt very right for what I want to achieve, but actually the contrast is not very high. They're very similar in terms of saturation, they're just different colours. And I'm thinking that the effect probably isn't going to be what I need it to be for all the work that's going to go into the scarf. It's double knitting, it's lace weight, it's going to be on tiny needles. It's going to take me a very long time to do it, and I wanted to make sure that it's as effective as possible. So I'm probably going to repurpose the yarn. I don't know what. I've never actually worked with lace weight before. It's the first time ever I've worked with lace weight, and I was really, really enjoying it. And it's because I started, I'm a few rows in, and I am going to stop. Until I said it just then, I didn't know what the answer was. I am going to stop. I'm going to pull it out, and I'm going to repurpose the yarn. So it means I've got a lot of very, very lovely lace weight yarn. It's Eden Cottage, so hi Vicky if you're watching, who I love. I love it. And I bought 4 skeins, 2 of one colour and 2 of the other. I've caked up some, but I can show you the other 2 that are not caked up. It's so beautiful. This is Theseus lace base in the colourway Hazel, which is this lime green, and Tarn, which is this petrol-y blue colour. They're so lovely together, they really are gorgeous. And it's 75% merino wool and 25% silk. It's so lovely. It's gorgeous. It's so sheeny and shiny and silky smooth and really soft. I mean, it just feels gorgeous. I could just sit here touching my face with this all day. Oh, I love it. So I'm gutted that I'm not going to be able to use it for this particular project. I think it's the right decision. I'm about 7 or 8 rows in, and there's 90 stitches per row, so I've done quite a bit already, but I think before I go any further, I need to make that decision, which means I've got something else that I can, I've got 4 skeins of this, so I can either use them together or I can do some massive lace projects on their own. There's 800 metres in 100 grams of this. The yardage is great, and it's beautiful. So 4 of these. Can't use them at the moment, but excited that I will be able to use them for something else. Hooray! It's all good. Even your mistakes in knitting, not mistakes, but even your sort of changes of direction in knitting can lead to other opportunities. I love that. Right, so that's that. Oh, Vicky, it's gorgeous to work with. It genuinely is really, really lovely, and I cannot wait to get stuck into using it on something which will be really right. Both of those colours are gorgeous. It's just together. I needed one that was dark and one that was was light, and they're both about the same kind of colour saturation, so that's my fault. While I was buying that, again, I needed to get something that would take me over a certain number of pounds to get a second stamp. And I went back to an old favourite of mine. This is Misty Alpaca, which is a sock yarn, hand-painted sock yarn, fingering weight. It's so lovely. It's 50% alpaca, 30% merino, 10% silk and 10% nylon. So you've got the silk and the nylon to give it durability for socks, but you've also got the alpaca and silk for softness, but the alpaca and merino wool. And I've knit with it a couple of times before. In fact, the first pair of socks I ever made for myself, the first design of socks, were the Cancello socks, and they were made with Misty Alpaca. I've got 2 more skeins of it that I haven't used in stash, which I love. And this, look at the colours on this bad boy. It's stunning, it's beautiful, it's probably slightly brighter than it's showing on screen at the moment. I cannot tell you how much I love this yarn. It's so squishy, and it's, Regular viewers of this podcast will know that I have a special penchant for alpaca. This is as good as it gets. I cannot tell you, as far as a durable sock yarn goes, this is as good as it gets. Just look at the label, soak it in. Peace, love, alpaca. It's amazing. I don't know if this has got a colour. No, just colour HS56. If you're looking for it, HS56, so you can do that. It's gorgeous. It's 400 metres, 437 yards, so really generous again. Look at how many colours there are in this. I have no idea what it's going to look like knit up. It could look like clown bath. It could. I don't think it will, because it's so gorgeous and the colours are so vibrant. Oh, it's going to be the most amazing pair of socks, and I can't wait! So that's basically it for stash enhancement. Is it? I think it probably is, yeah. So I'm going to move on without further ado to... Oh! I'm all out of order today. I'm going to go into our favourite, our very embarrassing, What's Tat? I've done that for a while. I actually haven't even planned this. I can't remember what I'm going to do, can't remember what I have done in the past, so I'm going to look at my arm and I'm going to choose you something. I'm going to look up, do you know what? It has to be, doesn't it? It has to be this one. Having just done a musical about the campaign for nuclear disarmament, I have the peace symbol here, which was appropriated by the CND group, Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament. And the interesting thing about this tattoo being on my arm is when I was looking for the 74 symbols that I wanted to put on this arm, because I was born in 1974, no more complicated than that, I didn't want this to represent CND. I wanted it to be the generic form of just being peace. And I think the reason I didn't want it to represent CND was because my memories as a child of fear of nuclear war and the fear... I used to live at the end of a runway at Europe's largest RAF base, RAF Bryce-Norton, during the Falklands conflict, where we had planes taking off through the night every 2 minutes, and I used to lie awake thinking that each and every one of them was going to be the nuclear bomb that killed me. And it really caused me a lot of pain, so I didn't want to associate something on my arm with those painful memories. I've changed my mind. Now that I have worked so closely on a musical about the Greenham Common story and seen how these women were absolute heroes, many of the women lived there year-round in tents and under canvases in British winters, with no lavatories, no running water. I don't know how they did it, and just to keep the world's attention focused on the plight of England, as it were, under sort of this its usage as a base for American missiles. They were heroes, and I've grown to love each and every one of them. In fact, interestingly, some of the women who were there, it's linked again, back to the show, clearly. Some of the women who were at Greenham have gone on to become public speakers, academics, are still protesting now. And there's one woman who we knew about, a lady called Rebecca Johnson, she lived at Greenham Common for 5 years, and she was one of the most outspoken and one of the most influential of the Greenham women throughout the whole time of its peace camps. And we had photographs of her on our wall, and because she was there for all of the sort of the big major events, and Ben and I were really nervous and worried about what the Greenham women would think of our show, partly because we're two men, partly because we're two gay men writing what is a very female story, but also because we wanted. A lot of people in this country think that these women were a nuisance, they were a menace, and conversely, a lot of people think that they were heroes and they were doing a really important job. And we wanted them to know that we were telling their story from a very sympathetic point of view, that we were on their side. One night, Ben and I were watching the show, and early in Act 1, there's quite an obscure reference to something that's very niche knowledge about Greenham Common. And there was a cackle of laughter from about 8 women behind us. And we looked at each other and went, I think there's some Greenham women in. And in the interval, we turned round to look at them, and there was about 8 women sitting in a line, 2 rows behind us. And Ben said, excuse me, are you women who were at Greenham? I said, yes, we were. And then he recognised Rebecca Johnson. 35 years on, he recognised her. And of course, as soon as he said, you're Rebecca, and she looked shocked that he would know who she was, I recognised her from him saying it. It was like, oh my God, this is Rebecca Johnson. She, of all people, was the one that we were most frightened of coming to see the show. Just in case she didn't like it, or she felt that we were telling a story or trying to trivialise their history in some kind of way. She loved it. She had loved every second of it. She thanked us for telling their history and for telling it in such a way. She said that we had really captured the spirit, the essence and the characters of Greenham Common, her Greenham, as she remembered it. And she went into so much detail about how she loves it. So all of those memories are so amazing and so wonderful, and that is why I'm reclaiming this tattoo. I'm absolutely reclaiming this and proudly wearing the CND sign on my arm. Incidentally, there were 2 symbols that were daubed all over our set from the banners and things that were shown at Greenham, which were represented in our set design. One was the CND symbol, one was the women's symbol, and I also have that tattooed on my arm. There it is. It's Venus for me because I've got all the planets, astrological symbols on my arm, but it's just very odd that of the 2 symbols that were dominating our set every night, it was the peace symbol and the female symbol, both of which I have tattooed on my arm. I think I was always destined to write that show. Let's crack on. Let's go to some FOs. Because I do have some. It's a bit of a cheat, because you might have seen this. You've certainly seen one of them. I don't know if you've seen the pair. I have finished the second of my massive green socks. They are huge. They are proper knee-length socks. I'm 6 feet tall and they come to just below my knee, and they have, on the foot, they have this sort of pointless cable. You can't really see it because from any kind of distance it just looks like stripes, but it sort of peters up. I didn't do any calf shaping, so if I hadn't done that cabling, I think the stitch count around the foot would have been too many, and the socks would have been really, really loose, but they fit me round the circumference of my foot rather well. But that also means that as the cabling stops, it gets less and less and less and goes to a point here. As it gets less, the sock kind of gets wider, which is perfect for going around my calves. So I have worn these several times. They're wearing quite well. This is West Yorkshire Spinners Air Valley Aran in green polka colourway. And they're great. It's 100 grams and 100 grams. So there's 2 balls of sock yarn went into, not sock yarn at all, 2 balls of yarn went into these socks, and they were knitted toe up, and I didn't do a very good job because I didn't know what I was doing, so when I got to turning the heel, I sort of didn't really turn a heel. I just kind of didn't know what I was doing, but I'm better at it now. So these were good study, and they're very heavy and they are really cozy. I quite like under jeans having the socks come all the way up to my knee. It feels in these colder times, it feels nice. there's no elasticity in them at all, and as if I walk around, if I go for a stroll anywhere, then they do kind of bunch up and they end up sort of round my ankle, but kind of like leg warmers from the 1980s, which I don't mind that either. So those, if you haven't seen them already, that's what they are. If you have, well, it's nice to see them again, old friends. Now, from the last Not a Podcast episode, people will know that I knitted a pair of socks in a rainbow, well, sort of 4 stripes, 4 coloured stripes, which got basically stolen from me by our stage management team to become props in the show. And here they are. I've got them back. Here they are, again, toe-up socks, just vanilla socks, no patterning on them whatsoever, apart from a slip-stitch heel there you can see. These are, although they are toe-up socks, they are done with a heel flap and gusset and a proper heel turn. So I started in the middle there. I was actually trying to match, I'm just going to take my watch off so I don't snag. I was trying to match the colours as well as I could. They're quite long. These came from just one 100-gram ball of yarn, which was Serdar. I told you on the other podcast, or the Not a Podcast. So I was trying to match the colourways where I started, and I did it rather well. Now, but they're not the same. The first one, which I believe is this one, this is the first one I made, was a little bit sloppy around the toe, and I thought maybe I wanted to make my toe a little bit narrower. So I made some alterations to the stitch count at the beginning, so I was increasing for longer, so I had a more pointed toe, and actually the second one does fit me much better. But what it has meant is that one toe is slightly longer than the other, and that the colours don't fully match. Let me try and put this on so I can show you properly. Because when I go into the heel flap, you can see here, I've got one mostly yellow heel flap and one mostly pink heel flap. What that has meant is that in the journeys, you can see at the beginning of the toes, it all matches nicely, pink, yellow, green, blue, pink, yellow. And then, here I've got green, blue, pink with no yellow, but here I've got yellow, green, blue with no pink. That's purely down to the fact that the stitch count was a bit different, and it changed so small, but it made such a big difference. I also did a little bit of adjusting to the size of the gusset and to the heel turn itself, but I've sort of perfected the heel turn that I want to put into my recipe. I just need to work out all the maths so it works for all sorts of things, and I am going to release it as a pattern. You can see here the heel turn itself is done with German short rows, so it's not a short row heel, it's done with German short rows, and it's all but invisible. It's really great. I absolutely love what German short rows do to your knitting. So it's basically, if you're knitting top down and you go into the heel, you're doing a knit 2 together over the gap every time, or a purl 2 together, or I do an SSP on the opposite side, because an SSP is the perfect complement, symmetrical decrease to a K2 together. That's what you want to know. So you're decreasing, so of course on the way going the other way you have to do increases. So I was doing increases and German short rows, and the combination works brilliantly well. I urge anyone to try it, but I will be writing up the recipe as soon as I can. The joy of these socks was that they're the right kind of colours for green. Green was all about rainbow stripes because rainbow was a symbol of peace. And when the stage management team saw that I was knitting these in rehearsals, they came over and went, "Do you mind if I photograph your sock?" I've told you the story already, but for those of you who may not have heard it, I went, "No, why?" I'm just going to send it to the designer. We'd written into the show a scene on Christmas Day where Mary, the mother, is putting like an orange and a piece of chocolate into a sock and attaching it to the washing line outside her daughter's tent for Christmas Day. And the designer loved it, decided it was perfect, so I not only wrote the show, I also knitted the props. And here they are, I got them back. Hooray! That, I think, is all my actual whips, all my FOs. I don't think I've got anything else, but I do have some works in progress. Now there's some that I can't show you, Actually, do you know what? I can show you a little bit because I'm now going to rip it out anyway. And this is the stuff with the Eden Cottage lace weight yarn. So on one side it's the green, and on the other it's the blue. You see how tiny these stitches are. There's 90 stitches in that row, which is sort of about half my width, and a nice scarf width. There's 90 stitches per row there. I haven't done any of the patterning yet, but I just know that the contrast isn't going to work properly. So my error, not Vicky's, because the yarn is gorgeous. But that's a whip, isn't it? It's a whip. Do you know what? I have to do this. It pains me. It really pains me because there's already several hours working here. If I don't do it now, I'm not going to do it. So it's time to take it off the needle. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. There we go. It's no longer a whip. It's frogged. It's for the best. It's genuinely for the best. My other whip is something I've been debating whether or not I should release it. But I think I've done enough to show. It's going to take me a long time to finish it, and it's all a bit scrumpled up because I haven't touched it for a wee while. You'll remember my piano scarves, the mathematical scarves based on the little fractal pattern that looks a bit like little sort of ziggy-zaggy H's and N's all sort of linked together. Well, those two scarves are part of a set of 3, not 2. And for the third one, I've had it brewing in my head for such a long time. The idea of how to make it come to fruition has eluded me, but I finally got around to charting it out and have given it a go. Whereas the first 2 are using the same pattern but just different iterations of the same pattern, so one is more complex than the other. They're still just flat double knitting all the way up. This one is not. It's a lot more complicated. It's much, much slower. I'm still a little bit unsure as to whether or not it's going to sit completely flat. I'm hoping that a block will sort it all out, but to show you what yarn I'm using for it, I'm actually using John Dunballum of Easy Knitter, or Easy Knit. I'm using his Cherish base in the colourway Van Gogh if you're Dutch. So easyknits.co.uk. Now Cherish is absolutely gorgeous. It is 8% superwash merino. No, that's not right. 80%, it says 8 on here. 80% superwash merino, 10% cashmere and 10% nylon, and the cashmere gives it such a loft. It's really, really so lovely. Even my husband, who has a serious wool itch, would be able to wear this. And Cherish in Noir. Now this is not a colourway that is usually available. I got John to do this as a custom dye for me, and although it's black, it's got this lovely sort of texture to it. It's very, very dark greys and charcoal and black. It's not showing up properly black on there, but can you see the slight heathering to it? There's really lovely sort of depth to that. I really, really like that. In the same way that the Cherish has different colours of the same colour. The Van Gogh has different colours of the same colourway added through it. So gorgeous, gorgeous colourways. And I am going to show you what it looks like. So you'll remember my piano scarves. I don't have one to hand, otherwise I'd show you to compare. But this one is all done with cables. And because cables go diagonally, and this pattern is upwards and acrosswards rather than diagonally, I'm knitting it on the bias. Madness. Double knitting, cables on the bias. Here we go. So this is the pattern. It's going to be really hard because it doesn't want to lie flat at the moment. So you can see this is the bottom corner where I started the scarf, and I've just started to turn this corner. So the scarf will actually be that wide, and it's going to get longer that way, but on a diagonal line. And there we have the cables. Can you see the diagonal lines of the rows there? And then on the back, we've got it going that way. It's a little bit on the squint at the moment because cables are not exactly at sort of 45-degree angles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that in the block, I'm going to pull it into a really nice square shape, and it will work very nicely like that. So if you see close up, you can see how the texture is actually made from lines of cables. Might be easier to see on this side actually. Lines of cables running in different directions from the directions that the rows are going. It's entirely crazy. It's entirely mad. I'm really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying it. You can't. It's not proper TV knitting. You can't really switch your brain off, but it's going to be gorgeous. It's going to be really unusual. And once it's blocked out, I think one of the difficulties is the slip stitch edges tend to pull in a little bit. So, and because knitting on the bias, everything is an edge. You don't have two ends because you're going, that's an edge and that's an edge. It's a little bit tight there, but I think with a bit of a soak, that's going to come out nicely so I can match the tension of the rest of it, which is why it's kind of curling around into a little ball at the moment. But there we are. That is the beginnings of the piano number 3. And I can't wait to get it finished. It's going to be absolutely gorgeous. I have one more whip to show you. Now, Dan Jones, this is coming at you. You challenged me to knit a hat that I would need to wear out in public. Now, I am making a hat out of the same yarn, and I'm going to be sending it back to you. It's going to be my gift to you as a thank you for giving me this wonderful yarn. I could have just knitted any hat at all, but that's not really my style. I wanted to come up with something new, and I'm actually really liking the pattern that I've come up with. It doesn't have a name yet, something about spiralling madness or something, I don't know. And it's just done with knits and pearls and a couple of K2 togethers and some yarn overs, and it's very, very wide brimmed hat. It's not finished yet, which is of course why it's a whip, but here it is. There we are. So that is the hat, and it's kind of like the different sections. This is reverse stocking stitch and a 2x1 rib, and it's a 2x1 rib for this rather long brim, and the whole point of that brim is that you can sort of turn up quite a lot. So I really like a 2x1 brim rib. Sorry, I like it for my socks, but you can see how it's just really, really lovely. I'm thoroughly enjoying how that all looks on there. I can't wait to get it finished. I've just started doing the crown decreases, and it's deliberately quite long so that, Dan, as we know you love a slouch, you could decide to wear it as a slouchy hat as well. I suspect you won't, but I certainly plan to, because I'm going to be making one of these for me as well. It's really, really fun. The joy of it is it's so logical that once you've set it up, obviously the brim you can just knit without thinking, but once you've set it up and started going a few rows into the pattern section, it's so logical. You can see exactly where you are, and I haven't even made a chart for this. I sort of did it out of my head, but I haven't even thought about it. It just goes round and round. So those spirals completely continue round the whole hat and will continue into the crown as it goes round, and then it's going to have a fabulous great big bobble on the top and look something like that. So that is my new hat design, and Dan, this one is coming straight to you. I'll probably take some photographs of it myself, but I may want you to do some photographs of you wearing it for the pattern release. What say you to that, Mr. Jones? I'm actually really enjoying it. It's a fun knit, and I think it looks kind of cool. I was worried that with the yarn overs, if you see close up, basically, it's little ladders down the sides of the knit two together decreases. I was a little bit concerned that it wouldn't look very masculine, because yarn overs tend to look a bit lacy, which tend to be a bit girly. I'm past caring with that kind of stuff now. I think something is masculine if you're a man wearing it. I wear my big shawl, my Genesis shawl. I wear it all the time, and it doesn't. Nothing about that feels feminine to me. So I think it's just how you decide to carry something off. So there we are. I've burbled on for ages and ages and ages. There's been so much to catch you up on. I can't tell you how nice it is to be podcasting again. I'm looking forward to getting this one out. But mostly what I'm looking forward to at the moment is the chance to get back into my knitting world. I haven't done a great deal of knitting recently, and I certainly haven't done any of my knitting admin. There's the 3 brioche inspired shawls, scarves that I made for my nieces and nephew over Christmas. I need to write those up. I need to work on tutorials for all of the different techniques involved in that, because some of them include double knitting and brioche, all done with the 1-pass method. Some of them include changing colours in brioche, some of them include just doing a slip stitch edging, which is from the double knitting world, but doing that in brioche so you get a nice selvage edge at the end of the 2-colour brioche. I've got to do all the tutorials for that. I've got to get my Genesis shawl, the big mother, written up and put together and released. Piano number 2 needs to be done, the charting and everything else for all the other things I'm working on. So over the next few months, I'm really planning to be very diligent about how I put together all my patterns. So expect a bit of a bumper crop coming up from me soon. I've been sadly absent from it all. But before I go, there is something else that I very nearly forgot to talk about, and I'm so excited about this. Next weekend, so the weekend of the 18th and 19th of March, it's the Edinburgh Yarn Festival in Edinburgh in Scotland, and I'm going to be there. I've been so ecstatically delighted. I got contacted by Louise Scollay, who is from Britknit's podcast, and she is running the Podcasters Lounge at the Edinburgh Yarn Festival, and she invited me to take part. I was kind of planning to go up to Edinburgh anyway. I thought I wanted to, didn't know if I'd be able to, but then this was the catalyst I needed to get myself, to give myself a kick up the bum and get involved. So I'm actually going to be there. I'm not really there on the Friday, because I'm going to be travelling up to Edinburgh on the Friday, because I'm in Birmingham with Ben's parents doing some stuff on the day before on the Thursday. So the Friday morning, getting on the train up to Edinburgh, and I should be arriving there about 2:30, something like that. So the plan is that I will be there for the afternoon, but my main day is going to be on the Saturday, where there are 2 Podcaster Lounge sessions, and I'm just trying to think now. I think the session, there's one on the Friday, but the session I'll be there for is from 12:30 till 2. Do you know what? This is really bad. I'm going to just try and look this up while I've got you here, because I think it's really important that I get the details correct. I'm so sorry. I'm going to put the timings right here on the screen, so I can't be bothered to do it. So these are the timings that I'm going to be in the Podcasters Lounge right here, but I'm also going to be hosting 2 round the table sessions, and this is the bit that I'm actually really excited about. Obviously, the Podcast Lounge is an opportunity for fellow podcasters to meet each other, but also for our viewers to come and meet us, and I'm really looking forward to that. I keep banging on about it, that the reason I do this podcast is because I love being able to reach out and meet people, engage with people. Well, what better way than actually doing it in person? It's going to be so exciting. So thank you to Louise for putting this all together and for inviting me to be part of it. I really can't wait for that. I might be doing bits of recording. I might want to maybe do some interviews with some people. So if you are there at Edinburgh, particularly on the Saturday, and you want to come say hello, please do. It'd be lovely to meet you. It'd be lovely to sort of share a little bit of filming with you. But I'm also doing some stuff around the table. There's table sessions. I've got 2 half-hour slots, and the timings are here, which I will find and put here for you. And basically, it's not as formal as a lesson, of course, and it's not a talk or anything like that. It's an informal drop-in session about double knitting that I'm going to be hosting. So I'm going to have lots of examples of my double knitting work here, with some of the unusual techniques that I've employed along the way, for people to see up close. I'm also going to be trying to do some demonstrations of some of the more unusual things that I do with double knitting, just to kind of demystify it really. But if anyone's got any DK problems that they want me to try and help and sort out, I'll happily come and give some advice. Or if you've got any questions on it, or anything you want to know, anything that will help sort of demystify the crazy sorcery that is the dark art of DK, then please pop along at the half-hour slot here and here, because I'm I'm there. I pick my brains. I mean, I really love sharing what I've learned about double knitting, and I want as many people as possible to be able to do it. Might even touch on a little bit of the one-pass brioche method. I have got a new video on YouTube, which many of you may have seen already, about doing it with one yarn in each hand, doing it with 2 yarns in the left hand, 2 yarns in the right hand. So it's all out there for you, kids. So that's going to be my weekend up in Edinburgh. I cannot tell you how much I'm looking forward to meeting people and to just being part of it. I know a few people who are going already. Anna from Wild and Woolly is going up there. John from Easy Knits, both good friends of mine. So it'll be a nice social event with people I do know, but I'm hoping to meet some people that I don't yet know and make some new friends as well. Whew, that's been a long old haul, hasn't it? And although this podcast episode is now a finished object, remember that life itself is a work in progress. Just take it one stitch at a time. I look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks for staying with me this long. And pop over to the group, join in the chatter over there, and get to know some of the crazy people who are just lovely. And I look forward to seeing you in Edinburgh if you get the chance to be there. If not, see you in a couple of weeks. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
I am sitting on one of the 6 silos here at Greenham Common, nuclear base as it was, that housed 96 cruise missiles. There were 96 missiles, nuclear warheads, housed in the 6 buildings underneath me, and over there and over there. Being here is filling me with a real sense of palpable revulsion. It's the kind of, I don't know, it takes me back to my childhood. I lived at the end of the runway at RAF Brighton during the Falklands conflict, and it was really present. The threat of nuclear war was present in my life as a child, and I used to get very frightened of nuclear war. I was maybe 8 or 9 years old at the time, and to be here and to have been given access, thanks to the production team of the documentary that we're working on behind the show Beyond the Fence, thanks to the access we've been granted, we've been able to come here and stand inside the silos where these missiles were actually housed, and I felt they were haunted. They were absolutely haunted by the ghosts of these terrible weapons of death. And out of the 160 missiles, US cruise missiles that were housed in the UK during the Cold War, 96 of them were here, and the rest were at RAF Molesworth. It's really strange being here. I can't say anything other than that. It's very peculiar. At the moment, what we're doing is we're filming some footage of all of our ladies you may be able to hear in the background. They are all dancing on top of the silos to recreate the famed Greenham peace protest where women broke into place and on New Year's Eve danced on the silos all the way through the night as an act of reclamation, showing that the base was not impenetrable, that the peace protest would prevail. That's the story that we're telling, and we're here recreating it. There's such a great atmosphere of fun and exuberance, and people are dancing all dressed as pagans. We've been up on top of several of the silos round and about, and it's chilling and thrilling in equal measure. Silos. If I swing the camera around, you can see the doors right behind me here, and these massive hydraulic levers, the doors you can see are actually in the ground here, and they would have lifted all the way up to seal this off, and these doors would easily withstand a nuclear blast. Let's have a little closer look. So what you can see in front of me here are the massive sets of hydraulics that would have lifted these doors. I'm actually standing on one of the doors as I film this, and over here you can see the control panel and a lot of the instructions to make weekly maintenance, check pressure gauge and note reading, check dipstick access through pick cover, inspection hole and note reading. And then here we've got the actual workings of how this all would have operated with the start and stop buttons. And we've got instructions on when this all failed. There was a method of cranking these doors open with, where is it? Down here, by hand. So to open the door using the hand pump. So now you know, if you ever want to open a nuclear door, then you can. This is the view from inside. I'm actually standing where the transporter erector launchers would have been. Each one of these held 4 cruise missiles, and there were 4 launchers, so that's 16 missiles in total in each of these silos, and there are 6 silos here at Greenham.